Good day, viewers. Welcome back to the Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio. That is I. Today will be episode 17. I'm going to get back into teaching. There'll be no preaching today. Dang it, didn't bring my Bible. Didn't get to do some good old Holy Ghost preaching. I do want to start out today with a couple phrases that I always end with, and I'm afraid that some of you may be missing out on this phrase, but I like to always end, and I will begin starting these teaching and preaching episodes with famous quotes. No God is required for a life of love, joy, peace, fulfillment, meaning, and purpose in life. And the good life is one guided by reason and motivated by love. It's called human love, just like the new song I wrote called Human Love. There's no need for any love from some deity that you say exists. We have it in us to love. All right, so today we're going to talk about rational or emotional. Let's just talk about thinking. Now, do I feel a little bit uncomfortable discussing brain science and neurology? A little bit. I'm not a scientist. In fact, I've only got a year and a half of college. I did go to Bible school. If you listen to my past videos, you heard my story and how I used to be I'm a former Christian evangelist and pastor and preacher. So yeah, Bible school, straight Bible years ago. So I do feel a little bit uncomfortable talking about brain science and science, but you know what? I've been reading it, studying it for over 20 to 25 years now, and I'm going to just let it rip. I'm trying to help you to think, my dear Christian friends. So let's discuss thinking. Is your thinking based on reason and rationality, or is it based on emotion? A beautiful definition I like to use for rational would be based on reason and facts, not on emotion or feelings. So again, when I'm talking being rational, it's based on facts and reason, cognition, but not on emotions or feelings. Now keep that in mind. Let's talk about the two systems of brain actions. This is pure brain science, psychology, and neurology. I'm just barely skimming the surface. Hopefully you can dig in deeper. It's called the library, my dear Christian friends. You can read about this from people that do it for a living. They're called scientists. We're going to talk about the system one of brain activity and brain actions. The first one is called motivated reasoning, or called hot reasoning. This is the part of the brain that manufactures emotions and feelings. Now, I'm going to get to a point here in a minute, so stay with me. We all use different brain parts for reasoning. Some of us use cold reasoning more than hot reasoning. Some use hot than cold. So hot reasoning is an emotional response, which is actually set in motion prior to conscious thought. Now, there's a part of the brain in the temporal lobe, deep inside the temporal lobe, called the amygdala. Now, some of you may already know this, so forgive me if you've already heard this, but many of you Christians have never studied brain science before because, hell, what do you need science for, right? I got the Bible. But let's see what reality tells us. The amygdala is a part of the brain that produces emotions or feelings. It's nuclei, okay? It's a group of cells in our brain that produces emotions and feelings. It's not really triggered by reason or rationality. So, through overwhelming evidence in brain science, people that tend to use the amygdala, and keep in mind that all of us use the amygdala at times. We use that part of the brain, the feelings and emotions. We are not 100% logical people. Humans are not 100% logical. We have feelings, and thankfully we do. What kind of world would it be? What kind of life would it be if you could not produce feelings of love or happiness and joy and fear and these different emotions that come from the amygdala part of the brain? We need it. Now, it's interesting. I remember this woman I trained years ago. She knew I was an atheist and she was a Christian. And she looked at me one day after we had got to know each other through personal training for a few months. She goes, "David, I'm beginning to see a different side of you." I said, "Really? And what's the different side?" She goes, "I figured you as an atheist would be just hardcore, pure data and logic, kind of like Dr. Spock." Those of you my age remember back in the 60s with the original Star Trek series. You remember Spock, the pure rational logic, no emotions, right? And that's what some of you, my dear Christian friends, think about we atheists. You think we're all just pure logical. We try to base a lot of our belief systems on reason, of course, but we have emotions just like you. So we all use the amygdala at times that produces the emotion. So let's move along. By the way, this is called motivated reasoning. Now, system 2 is called cold reasoning versus hot reasoning. This is the reasoning we use from a different part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, or the newer part of the brain, rather than the older part of the brain. This is part of the brain which produces the slow-moving processing of information. This is, rather than being motivated by emotion prior to conscious thought or feelings, we use the slow processing of information. Now, a perfect example I like to use in the difference of system 1 of reasoning versus system 2 is using the anterior cingulated cortex. That's what we use for slow processing of information. Is driving. An activity we all do, most of us do, driving our vehicles, right? I've noticed for years now, my brain never stops. This is how I'm wired. I noticed there are certain drivers in traffic, and I happen to live in the 11th largest city in the nation, Austin, Texas. City limit, we're the 11th largest city, and it's a pretty big place, lots and lots of people. There are traffic jams, and I've noticed many times there are certain individuals, there's a percentage of individuals that do not use turn signals, that seem to try to get ahead of other drivers, even in a traffic jam. They're not thinking, they're using feelings and emotions. These are the people that are using the amygdala, not the anterior cingulated cortex, the slow processing of information, right? They're just driving in and out based on their emotions. These could be very intelligent people, too, with college degrees and so forth, etc., etc. But you'll notice some of these people are just not thinking. There's a stoplight up here with 10 cars stacked up, and they're behind you trying to get around you to rush up to that stoplight, instead of just thinking and go, wait a minute. There's a stop sign or stoplight, just coast in. There are people that will cut you off, trying to get ahead of you, changing lanes, not just being patient. So I think we all experience this in our lives. I make mistakes too. I use my amygdala at times too, before any conscious thought, before that slow processing of information. This is called unemotional, rational thinking. That's what I think we should probably do. Now, why the hell am I talking brain science today? Because overwhelming evidence, you ready for this? Overwhelming evidence in case studies in science, that's how science works, through peer reviews and scientists trying to refute and debunk other hypotheses. So what they come to be overwhelming evidence, those individuals that tend to be more right-wing socially, such as very strong conservatives or Republicans or your Tea Party people, or very strong evangelical Christians, tend to have larger amygdalas and use the amygdala more, the motivated reasoning, not looking and waiting for the slow processing of information from the anterior cingulated cortex. They tend to be the ones to hold on to their beliefs, to defend their beliefs, and not look for evidence that's based on emotion or feelings, versus those socially more on the left that are more into intellectualism and less religion tend to use the anterior cingulated cortex. Now, you're going to try to debunk and refute this. That's fine. I'm not a scientist. Based on the research and study I've known, that's the way it is. I've also noticed that doing case studies of my own with people that tend to be more on the right, more religious, and more conservative socially, are the ones that deny science, deny evolution, deny climate change, contrary to overwhelming evidence of unbiased science. Why? Do you not believe reality? Why do you not believe truth and facts? Remember, rational, based on reason and facts, and not on emotions or feelings. Why? Because you're not using that part of the brain. Your amygdala is a little bit larger than those of us that think. It is wrong always and everywhere for anybody to believe anything upon insufficient evidence. Why not believe in things that are real? Why not use the slow processing of information? Now, let me make a quick little note. Those of us that are on the left, people that are less religious, tend to read more, tend to be more liberal and progressive socially. We're not free or from the amygdala. People on the left make mistakes too. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. But there's a difference. Those of us that tend to be further on the left, and we try to use reason and data and facts rather than jumping into something like Christianity because, it feels good. It's emotions and feelings. I don't care about facts. We make mistakes as well. Now, let me give you 3 examples real quick personally. Major mistakes I've made, not using the anterior cingulated cortex, using the amygdala. Number 1, water consumption. Personal trainer here. I got caught about 10 years ago into pseudoscience. We're all capable of falling into these emotional type feeling theories or hypotheses, right? As a personal trainer, I would teach and give seminars on fitness and health, and I was telling people, you got to drink this amount of water. You've got to hydrate yourself and flood your body with H2O based on the evidence that we, as human beings, are 70% water. Well, that's true. The calculation I received was not verified, was unverified, 0 peer reviews, not written in any scientific journal to be tested. It was some abstract, obscure person saying, this is the calculation you have of water consumption. Little did I know, I was flushing my system out of nutrients. I was flooding myself with too much water. I was peeing every freaking 5 or 10 minutes, driving my clients crazy, running to the bathroom so often. What happened there? I didn't look for facts. I didn't look for data. It felt good. I wanted to hold on, contrary to anything I read in any real science manual that says, don't drink. You need to drink water, but you don't flood your system with it. When your urine is pure, you're drinking too much. You're saying, what the hell is a Preaching Humanist talking about urine for? Because it is part of my profession. Fitness and health is my profession. Another logical fallacy, using the amygdala versus the anterior cingulated cortex, I got caught into, was veganism. And oh my gosh, my former vegan friends are going to freak out if they ever see this. Up to a year ago, I was a hardcore vegan. Did I look at overwhelming data and scientific evidence? Did I use the anterior cingulated cortex, the slow processing of facts and rationality and science? No. I felt good. My emotions and feelings were wrapped around veganism. That's the way to go. Didn't look at facts, even though I saw what the real science was saying. That we, as human beings, are probably, highly probable, evolved through natural selection, the preservation of favorable individual differences and variations, to be omnivores. And when mainstream science tells you the best diet there is, and as a trainer, I've had to change my ideas on many things because I've been caught into pseudoscience in nutrition and fitness many times. And I was even caught into major falsity years ago in Christianity because I wasn't using this. I was using the amygdala, my feelings and emotions. I found out that there were many people that were eating meat just as healthy and fit as I was. And I was proud to announce that I'd been only sick one time in the last 25 years. That's true. Find out most of that is genetic. My parents are 84 years old, very healthy, very sick very seldom. They eat meat. I had to come to my logical fallacy and go, whoops, I made a mistake. It's interesting to know, and I forgot to mention this, that using the anterior cingulated cortex it's involved in detecting mistakes or errors. You can make a mistake or error and go, whoops, my bad, and go right back to evidence and facts. Go back to this and not the amygdala. One more thing, sunbathing, laying out in the sun. Oh, I used to lay out all the time. I got to get dark and tan. Contrary to what real science says, who cared about that? I like to feel to have a dark skin, dark tan. And being Italian, it tan's easy. Overwhelming evidence in science using this and not the amygdala. says, the sun's going to get you. It's going to catch up with you. Oh, no, I ignored it. Ignore facts. Ignore reason or rationality. Ignore what science, overwhelming evidence of what people who do it for a living do. They test this stuff in a lab. When we go to work, they go to work too, but this is what they do. They test things to see if it's true or false to help us. I ignored it. It's not going to hurt you. Baloney. Got caught into pseudoscience. Why? Was using the amygdala and not the prefrontal cortex and not this part of the brain. So here we have it, my dear Christian friends. Are you using your amygdala, your feelings and emotions? Or are you using your belief systems based on true reason and facts? Something for you to think about. Food for thought for you, my dear Christian friends. Thank you for watching the Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio. No God is required for a wonderful life. Remember that. The good life is one guided by reason and motivated by love. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.